to the Fringe Youth Worker Podcast with TJ and Sonny.
Hello and welcome to the Fringe Youth Worker Podcast. My name is TJ McConaughey, and I am joined, as always, by my best friend and slimmer and fitter every single day, Sonny Saltalamacchia. Sonny, what's going on?
You know, T, just, I'm very grateful for the keto diet because I was eating too much brown rice, and now all I do is just eat bacon and cheese, and keto diet saved my life.
How many people out there are just eating too much brown rice? Like, is that actual thing? Like, is there
brown rice is the devil, and bacon and cheese is like manna from heaven, okay?
Oh my goodness. It's just every couple of years, a new blend of food that people have found that if you just eat that, you lose weight.
Yeah.
I mean, it started with the Atkins, and then we went through all these different things. I mean, my favorite was the paleo one because it was like, this is how cavemen ate. And, you know, they only lived to be 22, so obviously they were doing something right. Anyway, yes, there's a lot of, you are looking slim and fit, though, Sonny. So what have you been doing? What have you been doing to change?
It's called tired of being fat or overweight. Going to the gym 3 times a week, lifting weights. God, I think you have to lift weights. I think if you're just gonna not eat and fast, you're gonna lose weight. But like, well, how are you gonna look when you lose all that weight? And so I think you have to lift a little bit of weights to get that definition going. Also, it helps to burn fat. And so I've been lifting 3 times a week instead of going to bed at 4, getting up at 4, going to the gym, and then doing intermittent fasting. So doing the 16-8. So don't eat for 16 hours and only eat for 8-hour cycles. So I won't eat until noon, and then I'll eat until 8, and then I just don't eat for the rest of that time. So yeah, it's been working pretty good.
Intermittent. You know who else is doing that? Barry, my senior pastor, does that same fasting program. He digs it too.
There you go. 2 people you should listen to.
Yeah. I've also lost some weight, but I'm not gonna bestow my weight loss knowledge on the world because that's not what this show is about. That's not what this show is about.
Juice fast.
We missed a week last week. What was going on? Why were we slacking off that last week, Sonny?
I don't know. I was here by my microphone, ready to record, and you just never came through. And so I didn't know if you were alive or dead. So I figured you get a hold of me.
I love that picture. I love that lonely picture of you sitting there on the other end of a Zoom call that never connects.
Talking to my mic. I was gonna mimic your voice and then have a whole podcast with me talking back to you.
Maybe a puppet,
Yeah, it was gonna be pretty epic, but I decided not to.
For a while, puppets were big in Christian culture for a while. That's not what we're going to talk about tonight. No, I was at camp last week. I was loving on some middle schoolers. Man, I had a crazy week. I spoke at a camp, and then I went and ran my own middle school camp, and I felt like I was at camp for like 3 weeks, and it kind of was. It was nuts. But I'm back now. I'm excited for tonight, and I'm kind of done with all this chit-chat. Let's get to the show.
Join the conversation on Facebook and Instagram. And when you subscribe to this podcast, please leave us a 5-star rating. We desperately need your approval.
Do it.
Question of the week. Here you go, Sonny. This will be a fairly easy one. What's the most awkward injury you've ever gotten at work? What's the most awkward injury you've ever gotten at work?
At youth work or any kind of work?
Well, I mean, this is the Fringe Youth Worker Podcast, so it would help if it was at when you were working with teenagers.
Man, I don't know. That's a good question. I can think of one. All right, so it parlays into youth work. Several years ago, went swimming. My old friend Kenny. And we called ourselves the Water Dogs. We used to go swimming all the time back in the day. It was a lot of fun. Anyway, I got kind of fair skin thanks to my mom and her northern Italian roots. And fell asleep out on Detroit Lake. Really hot day. Fell asleep laying on my stomach. And got about a 2nd degree sunburn. Super, super bad sunburn. And it was probably the worst burn of my life. Anyway, so I go to my mom's the next day and tell her about it, and she's freaking out. Italian mother's always worried about you. So she puts vinegar like all over my back. And later that night, I was going to youth group. So she puts, working as a youth leader at the time. So she puts vinegar all over my back, and she says, "This will help your back. This will like pull out all the heat and stuff like that." I'm like, "All right, cool." So she does that, put on my shirt, and go over to youth group, do our thing. Anyway, like normally in during youth group, I can't remember if this was when you were there or before you, but BT or PT. So I'm out there in the parking lot playing football because that's just what we did. Prior to youth group, we'd out there playing football, and I start to sweat, and my whole back is covered in vinegar. And next thing you know, it's pretty bad, bro. It's pretty foul smelling. Like I'm noticing it. And at first it's kind of like that, like, hey, who smells? Who farted? It's kind of one of those deals. But after a while, I was like, oh damn, like that's me, and that smells bad. and we haven't even started the youth group yet, So then I'm like, all right, I'll go in the bathroom and try to dry myself off a little bit. Going to worship and sitting there, and a couple kids like, dude, you smell. I don't think it was before. I think it was before you. Anyway, I had to sit in the very back during the whole entire talk and everything because it smelled so bad. And I tried to go and leave my small group.
Italian food? What's going on?
It was bad. The vinegar, man, just reeked of my sweat. And then I got my shirt all stinky and stuff. And then I went to leave my small group, and they're like, nope. So I had to have my assistant small group lead to leave my small group and stuff. It was pretty bad. So not really an injury at working with kids, but yeah, it affected.
Oh man, that's pretty bad. That's pretty bad,
bro.
All right, I'll tell the story. This isn't so awkward, but this one is bad. I was before I was a youth pastor, and I was actually on a middle school trip, and I was just a middle school volunteer, maybe an intern at this point, and I'm snowboarding with a bunch of middle school guys, and some of them are really good. Some of them can like do flips, and some of them aren't great, but they're kind of squirrely, so that they can actually keep up with everyone. They just keep falling every single time. And I'm an all right snowboarder. I'm not somebody who does flips or anything like that, but I can hold my own with these middle school guys. And I got about 6 of them, and we're in this kind of this back ski run area where you kind of have to take a lift to another lift, and then another lift. So you're kind of like 3 lifts away from the lodge. And so I'm snowboarding, and I'm kind of ahead of the pack. So I stop, and I'm waiting for the 5 guys that I'm with to come by. And the first 4 guys come by, and then the last kid is the most sketchy snowboarder ever. And he just basically bombs every hill and then falls terribly at the end of it. And that's how he's keeping up with everybody.
It's good strategy.
And he just keeps getting up. He's like Scott Sterling, right? Like he falls like, are you okay? I'm fine. And just keeps getting up and bombing the hill. Hasn't figured out how to carve, hasn't figured out how to snowplow, hasn't figured out how to stop at all. And so the 4 guys go by, and I'm looking, and I see the student. He's coming right after my leg, and he comes so quick that I have no ability to move because you're strapped into a board, right? Like to get going on a snowboard after you've stopped is kind of a process. Dude hits me right in my knee, and the wrong way. Let's say it that way, the wrong way, and my knee makes 3 pops inward, pop, pop, pop. And I hit the ground, and I am hurting, man. I am hurting. And the kid gets up, and he's like, he kind of looks at me. He looks kind of embarrassed. And then he just gets back on a snowboard and then starts following his friends, right? And all these 5 middle school dudes just straight ditch me at the top of this hill. None of them really know what's going on except for the kid who actually hit me, and they're gone. I'm thriving in pain here, and thriving. That's not the right word. I'm
writhing in pain.
Writhing in pain, not thriving. I'm not thriving at all. And I'm hurt, and I realize that I'm 3 lifts away from the lodge. Like I have to go down this run. I have to get on a different ski lift, and then I've got to go down that run, and then get on one more ski lift, and then get down that run just to get back to the lodge. And I am kind of on the hill that we're on is Mount Baker, and it's not like it's a pretty cool hill, but it's not like there's a lot of staff around, and those guys that go around the thing. So I really have to just kind of stand up on a knee that's either blown an ACL or an MCL or a kneecap. I don't know what's happened, but basically I have to snowboard down 3 hills by myself. And then every single one of those, Sonny, I had to get back on the lift. And when you're snowboarding, you have to let one foot dangle. And of course, that's the knee that I've injured at this point. So I'm on a lift, and I have to literally let that leg dangle with a snowboard attached to it. And so it just literally is the worst pain of my life. I get to the bottom. I've like cried a bunch, and but I made it to the bottom. And it was kind of like a survival story. It was like, how much adrenaline can I have inside of my body to get me back to the snow lounge? And I probably should have just laid there and screamed at somebody, and then maybe they would have radioed for some help, and I would have probably just gotten a nice little snowmobile back to the lounge. But it didn't happen for me there, and I ended up having to snowboard on a bum knee, and it really, really hurt. And those middle schoolers, man, they never said they were sorry. They never even they never even acknowledged that I was gone. Later on, I think one of them came back and was like, "Where did you go?" And I've just gone through this traumatic experience of getting back to and I'm like, where did you go? Okay, where were you at, bro? And it was in that moment, Sonny, that I realized that middle schoolers are the worst human beings ever. And it's biological. They don't care. They will leave you to die. It is a dog.
They will cause you to die and then leave you to die.
Yeah. And maybe it was awkward in the sense that it was an awkward trip back because I was mad at all of my small group dudes the whole way back. And here's the other part of that, Sonny, is I was kind of a poor kid growing up, and so I don't really have insurance, so I never got that checked out. I mean, I could be walking around on a blown MCL for all these years and just not. And every time I have some problems, that knee does flare up. So I'm probably just injured for life. So
do you know that kid's name?
Who hit me?
Yeah, don't say it here, but do you know his name?
Oh yeah, definitely know his name. Yeah, I know I know all 5 of those kids' names. I still know all 5 of those kids' names.
My dad's side was Italian too, actually Sicilian, and I actually legit have a guy named Uncle Louie in my family.
Okay,
so if you want, if the paying ever gets too much, and you want some, retaliation, let me know.
He actually specializes in kneecaps, so it would be a knee for a knee.
Him and Sonny Harding. All right, Tales from the Fringe. Tales from the Fringe. Capital Fringe. You go first?
I'll go first.
Okay, TJ goes first.
This is a camp where me and my friend Adam went to, Adam. Adam, it was a camp where we were learning how to evangelize to children. That was the whole idea of the camp, is you learned how to run these day camps, and you learned how to explain the gospel to, because the gospel is kind of an abstract concept in a lot of ways to children. So you had to make it so that they can make it palatable, basically. And so you learn the wordless book and the Evangicube and all these little devices that sort of help explain to children why they need a savior. And so we're at this camp, and the camp is actually incredibly, incredibly dogmatic, almost pharisaical in a way. And it really is not a great experience. I remember at one point, Adam was teaching a bunch of students or a bunch of kids during our day camp thing. And he set his Bible on this little stage there while he was talking, because there was no place to put his Bible. He just set it down. And it kind of was it was technically on the ground because it was on the stage kind of area. And he got the sternest talking to about God's word and honoring God's word and how God's words never should touch the ground. And so Adam and I were just kind of outcasts at this camp because we loved Jesus and we wanted to learn how to speak to kids about the gospel. But me and him, we came from not the right families, not the right church situations. And so this incredibly dogmatic approach to Christianity just was sour to us. And that would be a good end of the story, but it's not. What happened here was we were at this camp and we were kind of learning. And it was one of those camps, Sonny, where it was middle schoolers and high schoolers combined.
That's not good.
Yeah, and actually a lot of camps, big churches do this and big conferences do this where they put the middle schoolers, the high schoolers. I think it's a crazy world where you put a sixth grader with an outgoing 12th grader. I mean, the years of life between those two people, you cannot speak to them in the same sermon. It's really hard to do. I mean, some people can, but it's really, really hard to do. And so I'm in this sort of like small group experience. We're learning how to do this thing. And I'm doing this skit before that I've sort of performed for them. And part of the skit that I was going to do, I had this kind of dance move where I grabbed the back of my neck and I grabbed the bottom of my toe and I kind of like bunched together a bunch of times. And it was just a dumb little dance move, right? And so my hand slips off of my foot and it's basically a coiled spring at that point. And my foot is in perfect alignment with this sixth grade girl's face. And I kick her right in the face, Sonny. Crack, just right in the face. And I'm an outgoing 12th grader. And I just kicked a incoming sixth grader in the face. I just did that. And I look around and I see that her face and her eyes are already like welling up with tears and her nose is already swelling. And luckily there's no blood, but I just kicked her in the face really, really hard. And I wish this was the end of the story. I wish this was the end of where this story was. She cried. That was the time I kicked a girl in the face at camp, but it is not where it ends. Sonny, she starts to cry. She gets super embarrassed and then she runs into the woods.
Oh, and beautiful. Beautiful.
We
nighttime? Is it nighttime?
It's at dusk. Okay. So it's getting dark.
Even better. That's how horror movies start.
The next 2.5 hours, the whole camp stops to search for this sixth grader who has gone missing because TJ McConaughey kicked her in the face. Her in the face. And so I have never felt like what it is to be Hitler, because I'm not that type of person. But I think that I was universally hated in the worst possible way because people were sure that she was out there getting mauled by a bear or kidnapped by a sketchy van because I kicked her in the face. She ran away from camp and now she's gone. She finally comes out of the woods 2.5 hours later, still crying and tells them that she wants to go home. Parents come.
Nobody found her for 2.5 hours?
2.5 hours, Sonny. The whole camp was combing the area looking for this person because I kicked her in the face. She wanted to go home. She went home that night. Parents came and picked her up and already felt very uncomfortable at this camp. Now I am literally the worst person ever because I kicked a girl in the face. She ran away and now she's at home because of me. And so that's the story of the time I kicked somebody in the face and she ran away.
It's awesome, man. Was that the last night of camp or what?
There was one more day after that camp. There was one more day after that camp.
What was that day like for you?
Oh, it was the worst. I mean, I wanted to crawl up into a ball and not come out, but I had to run.
You wanted to run in the forest for 2.5 hours?
I should have. I mean, I really should have. It was so bad.
TJ should be out here getting mauled by a bear, not her.
Shout out to Adam, my friend, we thought the worst thing was going to happen is that Adam was going to put his Bible on the ground that week, let alone that we kicked some girl in the face.
All right. A while back, I'm working with this kid. We'll call him Adam. Not your Adam. His name's not Adam, but we'll call him Adam for the sake of the story. Adam had, rough, just the classic, doesn't know his father, mom's train wreck. Mom essentially dropped him and his three sisters off to live with a guy she'd known for a couple of weeks. Guy ends up doing stuff to one of the sisters. They all hate mom for it, and they all suffer from PTSD moving forward, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so I meet Adam when he's about 16. Adam has some tattoos on his hands, and he's a rough kid and from the get-go. So I start working with him, and he had a history of suicidal ideation in the past and a history of some self-harm, but that was kind of dormant for a while. And then about a month before this thing happened, he had not only attempted suicide, but kind of got pretty sketched out and was saying some things and had to go to the hospital, and sister and mom had to take him there. And we had to do a bunch of follow-up stuff as far as getting him hooked up with the crisis team and like a youth services crisis team and all that kind of jazz. And so he becomes stabilized. And then he's kind of hit and miss, not really following through with what he's doing. He's on probation, and he's not following through with probation. So I'm working on the back end trying to help him get off probation. And all he has to do is complete a residential program. So if he goes into drug and alcohol treatment, into a res program for like 45 days, he'll clear his probation, which normally doesn't happen. Normally you have to come back and do other things and yada, yada. So the PO is working out a deal because the PO knows he has more mental health issues than really criminal issues. So all this is going like in his favor, but during this time, he like just goes AWOL and doesn't show up anymore, doesn't talk to me, doesn't talk to his other supports, doesn't talk to his PO, and it ends up getting a warrant for his arrest. So then all of a sudden, he calls me randomly one day. He's like, hey, this is Adam. And I'm like, bro, where you been? What the heck's going on? And so I tell him to come in because I'm working these angles for him. I want to help him out. So anyway, he comes in a couple days later. We work this deal out. And then I'm like, all right, cool. Things are moving forward here. So then, like a couple days later, we worked out the deal that all he has to do is turn himself in. And this was the PO's idea, which I thought was really cool. Like sometimes you hear bad things about cops and POs and stuff. But the PO was like, tell Adam that in order to clear his warrant, he has to turn himself in, right? Like the only way to clear a warrant is you have to get arrested and do that and face the judge. So the PO says, just have him turn himself in the night before he goes to residential. He'll spend the night in detention. In the morning, he'll see the judge. We'll tell the judge he's going to residential that day, and the judge will release him. So that way he spends the least amount of time in detention and yet still goes to detention and clears his warrant. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was super cool, the PO. Anyway,
I mean, yeah,
so I'll tell Adam
that's a cool PO because
that's way cool PO.
Will not
way
do
cool
that.
PO.
Yeah.
So we're sitting there in this interim period waiting for that time to come. Let's see, how did it go down? This is a while ago. A kid comes in. Oh no, I get a call from the PO and he says, "Hey, there's a rumor going around that Adam got in a fight with his mom and killed himself last night." And I'm like, well, I haven't heard anything. Normally I would hear that from the kids. So I was like, all right. I'll he goes, ask around and see if you've heard anything. I was like, all right. So then, so I have a kid there actually who was helping me do some stuff. I go, hey, did Adam kill himself? And the guy goes, yeah, it's all over social media. Or he goes, it's all over Snapchat. And I'm like, what? I was like, why didn't you say anything? He goes, well, I didn't know you knew him. So I'm like, pull it up. So he pulls up his stuff on Snapchat, and there's a bunch of stuff like R.I.P. and it says his last name, and you were the homie, and you were this, and all of a sudden that feeling comes over you, like holy crap, dude! This kid just freaking offed himself.
Yeah.
And the worst part is he had been in my office the day before, just stopped by to see what's up, get a bus pass, and then it was that night that he went home and did this, Yeah. So I'm like, holy crap. So then I'm like, man, what? So I'm just kind of tripping, right? I'm in the middle of a bunch of stuff. There's kids in my office and everything. So I step out and I go call his sister because I figured I just wanted to touch base with the sister. So I call his sister and I'm like, hey, what's up with your brother? And she's like, what? And I'm like, I heard he killed himself. She goes, no. And I'm like, what?
What?
And she goes, no, he's an idiot. I'm like, what do you mean he's an idiot? And she goes, he made a dumb post, and now everybody thinks he killed himself, but I've been getting calls all morning about it. And I'm like, are you serious? She was like, yeah. And I was like, where's he at? And she's like, he's with my other sister up in Portland. And I'm like, well, have him call me. And so I wait around for 10 minutes because that's still, I'm like, because then, oh yeah. So then I'm talking to her, but the last time she had talked to him was the night before, right? So maybe he did and she doesn't know,
Yeah.
So I call the sister in Portland. And she goes, yeah, he's out getting a haircut right now with my husband. But I still haven't heard his voice. So then, and this is ongoing, right? This is minutes and eventually hours go by. And so I'm like, well, have him call me. So a couple hours go by, he doesn't call me. So I'm like, what the hell? So I call her back. She doesn't answer. And I'm like, so I call the other sister back. She goes, yeah, she's out doing errands and she'll call you back. And I'm like, well, have him call me. So then I text the other sister. I say, is he alive? Just tell me that. She goes, yeah, he's alive. She goes, we're out doing errands. I'll have him call you when I get back to the house. I'm like, all right, fine. So I call the PO. I say, hey, I think it's fake. Talk to the sister. They both say he's alive. PO goes, yeah, I heard the same thing. So all's good. I say, all right, fine. All's good. So then a couple hours go by. Still don't talk to him. These two kids show up in my office. At the end of the day, I'm getting ready to leave, and they're like both in tears. They're like flipping out. One of them's Adam's best friend. Another one's this girl that he knows. The guy is like bawling. He goes, I just talked to his sister, and she confirmed that it's true that he's dead. And I'm just like, what? And he's like, yeah, she wouldn't lie, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, what? Because in my head, I'm like, I talked to his sister. His sister said he was alive, and I still haven't heard his voice. And then this guy's coming in saying he just talked to his sister and that he is dead. So I'm just like, what the frick is going on, man? You know? And so I call back the sister. She still doesn't answer. I call the other sister, and I say, have her call me. I need to hear his voice. And she goes, he's alive. He's alive. So I hang up the phone. I talk to the guy. I'm like, what sister told you that? And he goes, his street sister. And I'm like, bro, you come walking into my office saying somebody's dead, and you're taking the word of some dude's street sister. I go, when's the last time she talked to him? He goes, a couple days ago. I'm like, what the hell does she know, bro? She knows as much as everybody else on social media. So long story short, I end up getting a hold of him on the phone. He didn't want to call me back because he was annoyed about all the attention that he caused, right? So he goes on social media, causes this commotion, and then is annoyed with the commotion that he caused of people caring about him. I finally get him on the phone, and he goes, I'm fine.
That's what he said.
That's his response.
That's his response.
He is annoyed that I've been tracking him down all day, that I got his friends in my office who are concerned for him, and he gets on the phone in the most sarcastic, pissed off voice, goes, I'm fine. And I just go, literally my first words to him, I go, you mother blank. I was like, you know what I've been through? You know what these people have been through all day? He goes, not my problem. Ooh. And I'm just like, bro.
Oh my goodness.
I'm like, we got love for you, man, but this was a bad deal, you know? But then at the same time, because he's in a fragile state like that, like you can't like rip him a new one, you know? So like you got to like, you know, so then I play the whole thing. I say, who can you call for crisis? Who can you call? Here's my off hours number and stuff, blah, 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 work number and stuff. And then I hung up. And then I told his friends, and he didn't even want to talk to his friends. I'm like, here's your bro you've known forever. Do you want to talk to him? And he goes, no. And then they heard that through the phone, and they're like, F him, I'm done. He's dead to me. And then they like walked out of my office. And I'm just like, and it was at the end of my day. And so I just like hung up the phone and just sat there like, what the crap did I just go through, man? It was intense, bro. It was weird, man. It was a strange freaking day.
Well, thanks for sharing that, Sonny. That's some brutal stuff. Sorry you had to go through that, but I'm so happy that did not end in the worst way it could have ended. So, thanks for loving kids who, you know, you spend all day worried about, and then they say, I'm fine.
I'm fine.
We are still listening to the Fringe Youth Worker Podcast.
All right, it is now time for Pick or Flick. It's a topical game where we throw topics at each other, and we have to decide if we're going to pick or flick them. Obviously, picking them means that we like them. Flicking them means that we don't like them. And these are hot button things. These are things where people go either way. A lot of times it's sensitive to the time or whatever, but it's a pick or flick thing. So this is kind of rapid fire, and we try to get through this in a quick fashion. But there is some room for debate. Sonny can't let some things sit the way they are. So
we'll see who's debating tonight there, tough guy.
Okay. All right. So pick or flick. Sonny, why don't you go first with your first pick or flick for the night?
Grown men wearing sports jerseys.
Grown men wearing sports jerseys.
Grown men wearing sports jerseys that aren't playing the sport.
Pick? I mean, I wear lots and lots of sports jerseys.
That's why I brought it up.
I mean, yeah, you knew that I would pick this. I'm trying to figure this out because I've seen you wear them too. So I'm trying to figure out.
No, I don't wear them in the comfort of my own home. That's it. Or at a game. I'm saying going to the grocery store wearing a jersey. Nah, bro. At the game, yes. Not in public.
What? What's the problem with wearing them in public? This is a strange one. I mean, like
never been a fan.
This isn't even controversial in my head. Like I
think it's really controversial.
Really?
Do a quick Google search. It's a big thing.
I'm not going to do a quick Google search. So, but the reason is because you say it's out of context to wear the jersey when your team's not playing.
I just think it's funky looking, man. I mean, look at all over, bro. Outkick the coverage, Bleacher Report, all this kind of stuff.
What's it saying? What's the whole idea here?
You don't want to know what it's saying.
It's basically don't wear a jersey.
Why grown men in jerseys are losers. Once you graduate high school, you should not purchase a jersey. Small children are adorable in jerseys. You are not a small child. You may act like one, but you are in fact not one.
So wait. Is there jerseys? Like, I think there's certain jerseys that aren't great to wear in public, but other ones are
like
kind
what? What kind of jerseys are okay? What kind of jerseys are not okay?
I would say a baseball jersey is a lot more acceptable than, like, let's say a soccer jersey, because a soccer jersey's got like advertisements on it, and it just obviously is this kind of bright and flamboyant thing, and it really doesn't go. But like, I think a baseball jersey is a pretty slick looking thing, and it's always pretty clean looking in that way. I think even football jerseys, I don't wear my football jerseys all that much in public just because they're a little too much in that way, but I wear them at home. But what would you say? Is there a certain type of jersey that you're okay with in public on grown men?
A football jersey going to a football game, or a baseball jersey going to a baseball game, or a basketball jersey going to a basketball game.
So only jerseys at games.
That's it. I've done it. I've tried. It just doesn't work. I just feel so weird. I feel weird. I don't know. Maybe I'm old. Maybe I'm just to that point now where I'm like rocking a jersey of a 21-year-old kid. It just feels weird, man. I don't know. It just feels weird. I mean, doesn't it? Like, you're approaching your late 30s. Rocking jerseys.
I'm approaching
like
my mid 30s, but I'll keep going. Yeah,
late 30s. I don't know. It's just weird. It's weird to me, man. I don't know. Now a kid. Or a girl, I think it's different for girls. I think it's cute when a girl wears a jersey. Guys, not so much.
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm not. I would never call a guy cute in anything, but yeah, I don't know, man. In my head, like, I don't see the problem here, and I like jerseys. I own a lot of jerseys, and jerseys are like some of my favorite things to wear all the time. So
that's why I brought this topic up.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it.
Okay, you pick, I flick. Go.
All right. Political debates on TV.
Oh, they're the stupidest thing in the world. They're a waste of time. I think the whole political thing is a freaking sham. I've stopped paying attention to all of it.
So you just flicked the political debate, but you're also flicking politics in general.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's pointless. I think it's pointless. I'm one of those people who think it's irrelevant who's in the office. I don't think it matters if it's Trump or if it's Obama or if it's Bush or if it's Clinton. They're all buddy. Like they're all, working for somebody else, and so I don't buy into any of that crap.
All right. So for you, it's just a straight flick. There's nothing useful coming out of these debates.
No, 100%.
Mine's not a straight flick. It's a flick, but I think that the debates have some pretty fun comedic things to them.
Yeah, they're fun to make fun of.
Yeah,
but for the purpose of them, they don't do what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, well, and I think the other thing is there's a lot of politicians who aren't great speakers or public speakers, even though it's a big part of a politician's job. But a lot of these guys come from different places, and so them getting up is very robotic. And then you pair those next to people who are good debaters, then there is some pretty comedic moments. I thought Trump in debates was pretty funny, like all the way through the Republican ones, because it was like this giant troll in the middle of this very serious thing.
Oh, it was very entertaining.
Yeah, it was very entertaining. So I wouldn't flick those because I just love them just for the comedic value of them.
But that's not what their intention is. Their intention is to make you laugh.
No, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. So
that's the problem.
So I flick them because they're not purposeful in what they're trying to do. But I wouldn't throw them out completely because I think they're awesomely hilarious in a lot of ways. And so yeah, I mean, just all sorts of crazy stuff that's said.
Like Trump was funny. Like the whole time Trump was running, I was like, this is the funniest thing ever. Yep. Until you're like, oh crap, he's actually going to be president. Like
I think that was everybody. I think everybody was like, wait, whoa, this is really happening.
What did he say? What did he tweet? Wait,
no.
he's
Oh,
actually
no.
going to be president?
Yeah. Yeah. It was hilarious up until the point it's like, oh my gosh, Trump's in the White House. Like he's literally like that's where he's sleeping at. Anyway. Okay, thanks. What's your next one?
Life coach.
Oh, life coach. This is gonna be hard.
Now, we're wrapping up everybody. All your freaking health coaches, your life coaches, your finance coaches, freaking all of that's wrapped up in this.
So people who call themselves coaches who don't
People
coach,
who call themselves coaches.
but that don't coach sports in any way. Is that right?
Or wear a jersey.
Yeah, I'm gonna flick that. I don't like that. I don't like that. I think that's silliness. I think it's one of those things where we've remarketed things so it sounds a little cooler than, hey, this is a consultant, or hey, this is a financial consultant, or hey, this is a therapist, or this is a counselor, and I think it's also a way to like. You don't have to have a counseling degree to be a life coach.
Exactly.
So it's a way to kind of do that. I think it takes away like I think in a world right now that's constantly trying to redefine words and make things cooler and is more concerned with feel than it is with what it actually is. I think it's confusing. I think it's an incredibly confusing term. If you tell me you're a life coach, I'm always like, what does that mean? I don't even know what you're talking. And I think that even when I hear life coach, I hear, are you a fitness coach? Are you somebody who's going to give me some essential oils? Are you somebody who's going to help me with my finances? Are you somebody who's going to call me every Tuesday and give me a motivational quote? I mean, what are you? I mean, and I think that we tend to like the idea of a coach, but when it comes to a life coach, I'm not a big fan of it. I think it's a silly thing. I think in a world that doesn't like pastors or counselors or doctors, a life coach can be like a sexy thing, but I'm gonna flick that.
Bro, I legit know a guy who's been divorced twice and sells himself on being a life coach specializing in marriage coaching.
Oh.
Because he has screwed up two of them and knows exactly what not to do. No joke. No, I'm not even. And I would put out his name, but I'm not going to do that to the guy. I am straight up, bro. Honest, that's how he markets himself.
Oh, yeah.
I've been through 2 failed marriages. Listen to me. I know what doesn't work.
I failed, so you don't have to fail. Basically,
Yeah,
kind of situation there.
I'm done. Here's the other thing I can't stand. I cannot stand it. People who lost weight. Then they want to sell you a product, but they won't tell you what the product is because you have to talk to them first.
Yeah.
About how to lose weight.
Yeah. And those all kind of fits into the coaching arena.
Come on, bro. Get out of here, man.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. I agree. I think we're on the same page there. I think to go to your friend, like failure is a really great teacher, and we all love stories where people fail and then say, "Hey, don't be like me." But to have 2 failed marriages and call yourself a marriage coach, that's pretty hilarious just in and of itself. I mean, because
offering retreats for couples to come together, all together, and work on their marriage together from a guy who has 2 failed marriages. I like the guy, I respect the guy, but like, come on, bro, you can't build your company like that.
It's marriage though. The hard thing about that is it's marriage, because it's like marriage is such a big failure. But like, in your field, drug and alcohol counseling field, that actually helps qualify you to be a drug and alcohol counselor, is the fact that you were an addict at some point. So it kind of depends on the what you're trying to coach.
But the difference is when you get clean and live a clean lifestyle, then it's like, okay, this guy had some problems and he's turned his life around and done it. So it'd be one thing if the guy had like a successful marriage, but no, he just has 2 broken marriages.
So he doesn't have a successful one right now?
No,
no. Okay,
it's horrible.
That's pretty bad. That's pretty bad.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's like Gaffigan.
And that's
like
just one story. I know a ton of guys, man. Like, this is the problem. Like, just like what we're doing. hey, let's start a podcast. You know, it's like all these freaking dudes are just like, hey, look at me, and just like some people we don't need to look at, man. I'm sorry,
dude. That GIF that thing you sent me the other day, which was like, it was like
we're just three average white guys. Should we start a podcast? Heck yeah!
Dude, that was awesome. No, you're right, dude. We live in self-identified I'm awesome land, and here's the other thing is like, you know, you have to put yourself out there if you want to be successful in a field like this. So you have to kind of decide, like, hey, there is a point where you have to say, oh, let's see if it works. But there is just so many people who don't have very interesting things to say who are self-identified success gurus, and that's really unfortunate. That's really unfortunate.
But the sad thing is because of the internet, it's not about who you are anymore. It's who people think you are.
It's perception.
And if you can sell yourself online as the guru of whatever, there's enough idiots in the world who will believe you. You know, think about all the elder folks, maybe not so much now, but back in the day, who get scammed because of internet scams or something like that. You know, or the IRS calls them up. You know those calls you get from the IRS or your social security number and stuff. Like, you know they're a joke, but how many people? All it takes is a few to buy in, and then they get their money's worth.
Couple dummies, man. Just takes a couple dummies. And you're right. Perception is everything. Perception is everything. All right. You ready for another one?
Yeah, I'm over.
Wait. What's that one? We're both flicking on that one, right?
Flicking 100%.
Flicking hard.
I'm going to kick that one as hard as you kick that little girl in the face at camp.
Oh, dude. Okay. All right. Reddit. Pick or flick?
Oh, pick Reddit 100% of the time. Okay, so I deleted my Instagram, deleted my Facebook, deleted my Twitter. I am off of all social media. I do still run the Bridgeway, the studio page for Instagram. I had to get off, man. It was crazy. I am still on Reddit though, because Reddit's unique in the sense that you can choose what you want to sub to and stuff like that. You know, so you can choose your feed. Unlike Facebook and Twitter and Instagram to a certain degree, but now the sponsored ads and all that. And don't get me wrong, there's some really dark stuff on Reddit, but have some self-discipline. Don't go down those. I'm a big fan of Reddit, man. Mm-hmm. And it really, I think you turned me on to it. You were a big fan of Reddit too. So
no, I love Reddit.
Yeah,
so here I gotta have a love-hate relationship with Reddit.
We also have 5 accounts, so that's probably a problem.
That is true. I love Reddit because Reddit is kind of the starting place for all awesome things on the internet. It really is. It's everything that you see on Facebook that ends up being cool or shared like 1,000 times. It usually gets its start on Reddit. It really is the front page of the thing. The things that the things that I've had that have gone viral because of my Reddit involvement because they all started on Reddit basically. So I would pick Reddit. Reddit as a social media platform sucks.
It's not a social media platform,
but it has a socialness to it because nowadays they're trying to move it that way and that you can post things to a sub.
It's too anonymous though. It's too anonymous to be a social platform.
Yeah, but there is this new feature in it that they have like your profile instead of just posting to a subreddit, you can post to your profile, and so only your friends who see you can see it. They're trying to become more of a social media thing. I think they don't even do that. To get to a mainstreaming of Reddit. I think that Reddit's always going to suck as a thing because I think the people on Reddit tend to be internet trolls, neckbeards, people who spend way too much time,
mouth breathers
going through the internet, and they're good people for what's good on the internet. But as far as these aren't people you want to be life coaches. That's for sure.
No, that's where life coaches exist is on Reddit. Well, but here's why, TJ. Here's what I think is why.
Yeah.
Is Reddit and 4chan, because I think Reddit is maybe the nicer version of 4chan. Those are completely anonymous platforms.
Yep.
Where Twitter is a little more tied in, and then Facebook is a lot more tied in, and Instagram is a lot more tied into who you are as a person.
Yeah.
But Reddit is the place where you can be completely anonymous, and so we see the best and the worst of people on Reddit. Like earlier today, I was looking at this fasting forum, and it was a whole bunch of people posting about their journey of losing weight and posting about intermittent fasting and all this kind of stuff. And it was super cool and helpful, and people were like encouraging one another. There was posts on there, had like 48,000 up votes for like people losing weight and stuff. So super, super cool and encouraging. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, you can post wholesome videos and they'll get thrashed on there.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think that's because of the anonymity of it.
Yeah.
And that's what makes Reddit kind of the king, is because it's who people really, truly are, because it's so anonymous.
It's a gauntlet is what it is. It's if you can get through that gauntlet, you can have a viral video. You can have an amazing, story that gets shared a bit. But if you can't get through that gauntlet, you're going to get beat up. And everyone who has stuff has been beat up. I mean, people who have multiple viral videos, they also have times where like I posted this and then I got my butt kicked basically on here because of this or this or that.
But you have both made money off Reddit by posting videos on there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Got a kind of a big announcement here and a special segment, a part of our show here. We are clanning up with 4 other podcasts to form the Youth Ministry Podcast Network. These other 4 guys are podcasts and friendships that we've made along the way in the journey of our podcast. We're really excited about this, and our plan is to have a podcast from the network drop every single day of the week, or the work week. So there's 5 podcasts, there's 5 work weeks, so that you can have high quality youth ministry podcasts every day of the week. We wanted to go check out these other ones, but here's a conversation that I had with the 4 other podcasts, so you can get familiar with what their content is and see if it's something you want to check out as people who listen to Youth Ministry Podcast. I hope you guys enjoy. Hello and welcome to a very special little moment here. We've been advertising this, kind of hinting at it on our various social media things, but we are launching a podcast network, namely the Youth Ministry Podcast Network. We have 5 podcasts that represent a different facet of this network. So I'm going to welcome on different show hosts for the different podcasts that are going to be in this network. And I'm going to ask them a few questions, and then we're going to move on to the next person. I am joined by Justin Herman, who is the host of the Controlled Chaos Podcast and also a member of the Youth Ministry Podcast Network. Justin, what is real?
What's up, guys? I am so pumped that this network is happening. This is a long time coming. Finally, it's here. Big deal. Youth Ministry Podcast Network. Really excited.
So tell me, Justin, let me know a little bit about the Controlled Chaos Podcast. If you've been living under a rock and you don't know about this podcast, tell us a little bit about why this podcast exists and why you're passionate about it.
Yeah, it's a Controlled Chaos Podcast, junior high ministry podcast for youth workers, but we cover a whole lot of other stuff, leadership, culture, a whole bunch of different things. And it started, my wife suggested I start this podcast. Whoa. And I started in my living room, and it has grown to, I do every episode with Kurt Johnston now, who's my mentor at Saddleback Church. We've got on some amazing guests that totally blow my mind, and it's just fun. I think I'd do it if I had 10 people listening or 10,000 people listening, which I don't, but I would do it no matter what, because it's fun. I like talking about junior high ministry. I like talking about youth ministry, and I don't see any end in sight.
Very, very cool. Why are you excited about this network starting?
I think that it's the cliche, right? We're better together than apart. But I think there's a lot of really good voices. You, Matt, Michael, the Joe. I think there's just really good voices out there in youth ministry that not everyone gets exposed to, and we have the opportunity to expose everybody to each other, and to keep the analogy going probably farther than it needs to. The more I can expose myself and help you guys expose yourselves to others, I think the better youth ministry it's going to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you did a little bit too much of that, exposing yourself.
It went a little too long. I could have stopped at any time, and I didn't, and I should have.
I'm excited to be in a network with Justin Herman and the Controlled Chaos podcast. I'm more excited that maybe at some point, because of this network, I'll get to talk to Kurt Johnston. But Justin's great too. All right, moving on. Let's talk here to Matt. Matt is the host, or one of the hosts, for a upstart podcast called Youth Ministry United. Tell me a little bit about what Youth Ministry United is, Matt.
Yeah, so Youth Ministry United, it was kind of, I'll be honest, it was on my mind for a while. And I started the podcast network back in February, and then we officially launched in March. But the whole vision kind of behind it is to be a united team of youth pastors, youth workers that come alongside as hosts and co-hosts. I don't want to be the sole voice of this podcast. So just that whole united aspect and team aspect is what we kind of wanted to bring along.
What is your background in youth ministry? Why do you care about? Why did you start a youth ministry podcast?
So my background in ministry for the last 2 years, I've been part of a small church plant of about 50 people or so, and I've had the experience within the last year and a half, 2 years of running a ministry on no budget. So running a ministry on no budget is completely different than having a budget of resources at your disposal. So just that whole mentality of low budget youth ministry, we kind of want to bring that small church context into the field as well.
Why are you excited about being a part of this network, Matt?
Like Justin said, we're better together. So just having that whole team mentality behind this whole podcast network, I think is what excites us.
Moving on to Joe, and Joe is the podcast host of Multi. Joe, why does Multi exist?
Myself, along with EJ Swanson and Kim Schuler, launched the Multi podcast back in June of 2018 after looking out at the landscape of what was available for youth and student ministry, whether it be blogs or books or podcasts, and seeing that there was pretty much absolutely nothing out there for those who do multi-site student ministry. Between the three of us, we have a combined 25 plus years of doing multi-site student ministry. We all are part of the Woodside Bible Church family up in Michigan, who currently has 14 campuses. And so out of our years of doing multi-site, from the great wins to the mistakes that we've made, we decided to launch this podcast as we look to hopefully equip and encourage and empower those, whether they are the lead person at a campus, a part of a merger, a plant. Because one of the beautiful things about the church that God has allowed us to be a part of is we've got campuses that are everything from small rural churches to large suburban churches to those who are meeting in schools and everything in between.
Awesome. And why are you excited about being part of the Youth Ministry Podcast Network?
One of the things that has been such a joy for us in launching Multi are the conversations that have arisen with others doing student ministry, youth ministry, whether multi-site or not, across this nation, across this world, as we look to grow and be better stewards and better leaders of that which God has led us to and blessed us to be a part of in leading this generation. And so we are excited to be a part of this podcast network. This team is incredible. I love and appreciate the hearts of all of those who are looking to do the same thing, equip, encourage, and to learn themselves as they look to lead well.
I love it. We are now moving on to Mike. Mike is the podcast host of Why We Stayed. What is Why We Stayed about, Mike?
So I've been in youth ministry for the past 10 years of my life, and I love the church. I believe in young people, but I also have seen a staggering statistic that has taken place that Barna Research Group would say that 9 out of 10 young people will leave the faith by the time they're 25. What that means is 90% of people that have grown up in church, that have grown up in faith, 90% of them by the time they're 25 will be absolutely gone. Some will even renounce their faith all together. And so statistics are one thing, but I started this podcast, Why We Stayed, because I was like, that may be true that 9 out of 10 are leaving, but what about the 1 out of 10 that are staying? Rather than focusing on the 9 that leave, what if we started asking the question, man, what is making that 1 stay? And so every single week we interview young people from all over the country that have chosen to stay.
What excites you most about being part of this network?
I'm so honored to be a part of the Youth Ministry Network, and man, we are just getting started. So check us out, Why We Stayed. Follow us on Instagram. It's going to be a fun ride, and we're just getting started. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Mike. I love you, dude. Buffalo guys. Well, hey, TJ, you need to answer these questions too, man.
Yeah.
So tell us about your podcast. What is the Fringe Youth Worker Podcast all about?
The Fringe Youth Worker Podcast is really an outgrowth of a friendship that me and my best friend Sonny have kind of fostered over the last decade. Sonny was one of my volunteers. He was like my super volunteer when I was at a church down in Oregon. And he was on the other side of youth ministry. He was in more of a secular format. He's a juvenile drug and alcohol counselor. And so he took his position and his volunteer position, and he stole our methods. He took all of our youth ministry methods and he applied them to the drug and alcohol world for youth. And he made himself a name doing those things, and he started killing it, and became like this, everybody in Salem, Oregon knew who Sonny was because he was just killing it on this front. We ended up doing a couple camps together, and just really did some awesome things. And so we kind of found that youth workers, both inside the church and outside the church, share a similar heart. And so for us, we've both had just a passion for reaching students on the fringes of society. And so our podcast kind of outreaches to the fringe students, and Sonny and I consider ourselves to be sort of fringe youth workers. So, and so the Fringe Youth Worker Podcast can sort of exist in that place.
I love that. And why are you excited to be in the network?
Man, I think that anytime you can clan up with like-minded folks to produce quality products in order to bless other youth pastors, I love the idea that we have all these different podcasts